The galaxy was vast, filled with countless stars, planets, and civilizations. Among them, the United Galactic Coalition (UGC) stood as a beacon of order and justice. But even in such a vast expanse, there were those who defied the rules, who threatened the fragile peace that held the galaxy together. And then there was her, Zyra Kale, the most dangerous alien in the known universe. Zyra was a Zorathian, a species known for their ethereal beauty and lethal abilities. Her kind possessed the power to manipulate energy, bending it to their will. But Zyra was different. She was a rogue, a rebel, a force of chaos. She had single-handedly destroyed entire fleets, toppled governments, and left a trail of destruction across the galaxy. The UGC had labeled her a Class Omega threat, the highest level of danger. And now, after years of evading capture, she had been caught. Commander Jackson Vera, a decorated soldier of the UGC, was chosen to execute her. Jackson stood in the dimly lit chamber of the UGC's flagship, Eclipse. The air was thick with tension as he prepared for the mission. The holographic briefing displayed Zyra's file, her crimes, her abilities, her last known location. She was being held in a maximum security prison on the desolate moon of Kryos 9, a place designed to contain the galaxy's most dangerous beings. Commander Vera, the voice of Admiral Terran, his superior, crackled through the comms. This is a high-stakes mission. Zyra Kale cannot be allowed to escape. Her execution must be carried out swiftly and without hesitation. Do you understand? Jackson nodded, his jaw tightening. Understood, Admiral. I won't fail. But as he boarded the shuttle to Krylos 9, a strange feeling gnawed at him. He had executed missions before, taken down countless enemies. But this one felt different. Zyra Kale was no ordinary criminal. She was a legend, a myth, a name whispered in fear across the galaxy. And now, he was tasked with ending her life. The prison on Krylos 9 was a fortress of cold steel and impenetrable barriers. Jackson moved through the corridors with precision, his combat armor gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. The guards saluted as he passed, their faces grim. They knew who he was here for. Finally, he reached the containment cell. The door hissed open, revealing a small, sterile room. And there she was, Zyra Kale. She sat on the edge of a metal bench, her posture relaxed, almost casual. Her long, silver hair cascaded down her back, shimmering like starlight. Her skin was a pale, iridescent blue, and her eyes were like twin galaxies, swirling with colors Jackson had never seen before. She looked up as he entered, a faint smile playing on her lips. "So," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, "you're the one they sent to kill me." Jackson froze. He had expected defiance, rage, perhaps even fear. But not this. Not calm. Not beauty. "Zyra Kale," he said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "By order of the United Galactic Coalition, you are hereby sentenced to death for crimes against the galaxy. Do you have any last words?" She tilted her head, studying him with those mesmerizing eyes. "You don't want to do this," she said softly. Jackson's grip tightened on the blaster at his side. "I don't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice," she replied, standing slowly. She was taller than he expected, her presence commanding. "You could let me go." "That's not an option." Zyra took a step closer, and Jackson instinctively raised his blaster. But she didn't attack. Instead, she reached out, her fingers brushing against the weapon. A surge of energy coursed through it, and the blaster disintegrated into dust. Jackson stumbled back, his heart racing. "What? I could have done that to you," she said, her voice still calm. "But I didn't, because I see something in you, Jackson Vera." "Something? How do you know my name?" he demanded. Zyra smiled. "I know a lot of things. like how you joined the UGC to protect the innocent, how you've always followed orders, even when they went against your conscience, and how, deep down, you're not sure if this is the right thing to do. Jackson's mind raced. She was right. He had always believed in the UGC's mission, in maintaining order and justice. But this executing someone, even someone as dangerous as Zyra, felt wrong. And yet, he had his orders. I don't have a choice, he repeated, though the words felt hollow. Zyra stepped closer again, her gaze locking with his. Yes, you do. You can choose to see the truth. The UGC isn't as noble as you think. They've done terrible things they don't want you to know. I'm not the villain here, Jackson. I'm fighting for freedom, for justice. Jackson's resolve wavered. He had heard rumors, whispers of corruption within the UGC, but he had always dismissed them as lies. Now, standing before Zyra, he wasn't so sure. Why should I believe you? He asked. Zyra reached out, her hand hovering just above his chest. Because you feel it too. The doubt, the conflict. Let me show you the truth. Before he could react, she placed her hand on his chest. A surge of energy flowed through him, and suddenly he was no longer in the cell. Visions flashed before his eyes. Images of UGC atrocities, of innocent lives destroyed in the name of order. He saw planets bombed, species enslaved, descent crushed. And he saw Zyra, not as a destroyer, but as a liberator, fighting to free those who had been oppressed. The visions faded, and Jackson stumbled back, gasping for breath. His mind reeled from what he had seen. It couldn't be true, and yet he knew it was. Do you see now? Zyra asked softly. I'm not your enemy. Jackson looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time, he saw not a criminal, but a woman who had sacrificed everything for what she believed in. A woman who, despite everything, still had hope. And in that moment, something inside him shifted. I can't kill you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Zyra's smile widened, and for the first time, he saw a glimmer of vulnerability in her eyes. Then don't. The alarms blared as Jackson and Zyra made their escape. The prison was on high alert, guards and drones swarming the corridors. But together, they were unstoppable. Jackson's combat skills and Zyra's energy manipulation made them a formidable team. They fought their way to the hangar, where a small, sleek ship awaited. As they boarded the ship and blasted off into the stars, Jackson felt a sense of freedom he had never known. He had defied his orders, betrayed the UGC, and for what? For her. For the woman who had shown him the truth. For the woman he had fallen in love with at first sight. Zyra sat beside him in the cockpit, her hand resting on his. Thank you, she said softly. Jackson looked at her, his heart swelling with emotions he couldn't quite name. I should be thanking you. You showed me the truth. You gave me a choice. Zyra leaned in, her lips brushing against his in a kiss that felt like destiny. In that moment, Jackson knew he had made the right choice. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He would stand by Zyra's side, no matter what. The UGC declared Jackson Vera a traitor, a fugitive to be hunted down and brought to justice. But he and Zyra were always one step ahead, fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Together, they became legends, not as destroyers, but as liberators. And though the galaxy was vast and filled with countless stars, they found their place among them, together. For Jackson, the mission had started as an order to execute the most dangerous alien in the galaxy. But it had ended with something far more profound. It had ended with love. And in the end, that was all that mattered.